Hello everyone, in this video we will talk about non-primitive data type and that too particularly functions. We'll talk about functions, and functions are nothing but blocks of code. I'll tell you why it is called blocks of code, but before that, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please subscribe, and also if you haven't watched primitive data type video, you can go to the description and you will find the links, right? So first let us understand why should we use function, right? So the first problem here is that I have number 1 is equal to 78, number 2 is equal to 89, and then I'll do console.log of number 1 plus number 2. Great. And I've done it thrice for a reason, right? For example, someone comes to you and tells that, okay, I need to print this number 1 plus number 2, basically add thrice. What are you going to do? Simple step. You just need to copy and paste or write console.log of number 1 plus number 2 or number 2 plus number 1 3 times. Great. And that will give you an answer of 167 3 times. Great. No issues with that. But here we can see that we are repetitively writing that particular code, the console.log, and that is not great as a programmer, right? You should know to optimize your code, and that is the reason why we have a function. So one of the scenarios why we use a function is throughout your application, a very big application, you have some lines of code that is repeating. We dump it inside a function and later use it. I'll tell you how it's done. Now let's take the same example that we have to print console.log, or we have to write an add function to print this 78 plus 89. How it's done? Function. This is the keyword and an appropriate name. And which sounds good for me because we are going to add two numbers, right? Two numbers, three numbers, doesn't really matter, right? Now inside the this console, we are going to do the same thing. And meantime, I'm going to comment this off because it's confusing, and I'm going to print it. I'm going to say number 2 plus number 1. Okay, simple. Let's go back. Let's refresh. And we can see that there's nothing on the console. We can wait an entire day and nothing comes up. This is because you have written the function, right? But you haven't called the function. This is particularly called as calling a function or invoke, right? And what do you do here? You have to write the function name and parenthesis. Why we use this? Is there anything that we have to pass? We'll talk about it in this video later, right? Now try to understand that this is a keyword that is used, that is function. You cannot replace this with anything else. Name of the function, an appropriate name, so that other fellow developers can understand. And inside that, you are going to write this. Now this opening curly braces till the closing curly braces, this is called as a block of code, right? So whatever you write, whatever gibberish you write, this is nothing but the block, right? And now when I go back, if I refresh, I can see 167, which is good, but the purpose is not served. You told us that this should be printed 3 times. Here you go. You have called it function, called it once, call this function once, add second time, add third time. We're done. So here we will have, I don't know what is wrong with this, but here you have 3 times. Great. You can call this n number of times, doesn't really matter. It's going to call the function again and again. Now, why is this used? Again, your application is really huge, right? And you and your developer see that, or your team basically sees that there are a lot of code that you have to use later. I cannot do console.log every time when I need a console. So that is the reason I write it once and simply I'll call it whenever I need it. That is the main purpose, right? If you have got this, we have two more things that I have to explain you: function expression and arrow function. Okay. So function expression, I'll write the code first and then explain you. It's simple. Now let me write const. This is a multiplication function. Okay. And then I'll write function and I'll do console.log number 1 times number 2. Simple. It's just a multiplication function. Again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to call. Okay, that is great. and when you refresh, you can see that it's 6942, right? This is one of the flavors of writing function. Now here you have seen that we have function and then we have the name of the function. But here you can see that I have the function, but I do not have any name. I straight away wrote this. Okay, I messed it. I'm really sorry for that. Now this is called as anonymous function, right? Because the function does not have a name. Then we assign it to a variable, and that is how function is got, correct? And now one more important point that I have to tell you. Can I call add function over here? Take a moment, pause the video, and let me know what you think of this. I'm going to remove this add execution, right? I'm going to clean up all this code. I have called the add function before it is written, right? Before the function is written. Will that work? Well, it does work. That is why we have answer over here on the console. Forget this 6942. It's the result of multiplication. 167 is the answer. This is called as hoisting. By that fact, what do you think? What will happen if I move this multiply before it is declared? Now, if I refresh, JavaScript is going to scold. It is going to tell that multiply is not accessible. You have done something wrong. Well, that is one of the major differences. Here, this is a concept of hoisting, which we will learn later, right? I did function add and I called it before even it is defined, right? So here it is completely fine, not a problem, but here it's a problem, correct? So that is one of the major differences between function expression and regular function. And second thing is we use anonymous function. At later point of time, I can change this to mult, doesn't really matter. But this is illegal. I cannot actually call it before it is declared. Okay. Now, can I just write multiply over here? Will this work? I'll call mult like this. I'll remove this. I don't need add anymore. Will this work? Yes, it will. Right. This is one of the use cases wherein you can actually call a function, as in you can use a name, keep it. Earlier it was anonymous. Now it's not anonymous. So you can actually have a function and assign it to a variable. So same thing here. I can do it. I won't confuse you much. Addition, and this is completely fine. Okay. But now you have to use this addition to call the function. Now, if you have understood both of this, arrow function won't be a problem. Okay. In ES6, we have arrow function, which is nothing but an easier way to write a function. What we basically do is const name of the function, that is addition, for example, and that is equal to a parenthesis arrow keyword like this. Okay, here it's going to complain because I've used this, so I'll remove this. Well, okay, so here what you have to do the same thing. Number one, this number two. I could have copied, but that is fine. Okay, what will happen if I call addition? But why do we use this? First of all, I like this syntax, and second thing, it's a syntactical sugar. And third thing, you will see whenever we learn ES6, the usage of this keyword is going to matter a lot. Okay, as of now, you just need to know there are three types of function. One is a regular one, function expression, or a function. You're free to use whichever you like. Now, since you know the function, let's understand what is parameter and argument. Well, here we do not have any kind of flexibility, right? I have number one, I have number two, that is it, correct? What if my number one and number two is changing for each and every input? Let's try to understand that. I'm going to use regular function for this. I hope you have got the other two types. You can use any of the functions, right? Any of the syntactical sugars that you want to use, or any of the syntaxes. So let me tell, I don't know, add, and here inside this parenthesis we will have num1 and num2, right? And the order is pretty much important. I'll tell you why. For now, let me just do console.log of num1 comma num2, and of course I have to call the function. And now this parenthesis, right, this is expecting two numbers. Okay, I can manually do it. For example, I can do 45 and 56 like this, and the next line I'll be using number 1 and number 2. Let's see what is the console. I can see 45, 56, 78, 89, right? So here what happened is, whenever you are calling a function, if your function declaration has these two things, as in it has some kind of parameter. By the way, these are called as parameters and this is called as arguments. Okay, there is a difference. Whenever you're calling or invoking a function, if you use something inside the parenthesis, it's called as an argument. And when you're declaring a function, defining a function, you use parameter. Okay. And now what happened? I used 45 and 56. So my num1 is going to take the value of 45. Therefore, it's printing 45. Num2 is going to take the value of 56 and printing num2. In the next call, number 1 is 78, number 2 is 89. You can cross verify. See? And is it going to matter if I, change the order of parameter or argument? Yes. Correct. Num1 is 45 here. If I write, for example, num2 over here, it's quite confusing, don't get confused, and num1 here, what will be the value of num1, right? It will be num2, right? Because in the place of num1 here you have called num2, number 2, I've used number 2, right? So basically you can see that there is a shift in the value, right? 89 and 78, and 89 is our number 2, correct? So that is one of the major difference that you have to keep in mind, that you should never ever change the argument, the order of the parameter or argument, that you have to keep in mind. Let's do this number 1 and let's do this number 2. To call my function with different kind of inputs, the entire idea of using parameter as well as argument is to give the function flexibility. Every time our number won't be 78 or 89, right? We need to have flexibility. So that is the reason why we use parameter. Another example, let's say I want to greet someone, right? So function, I'll write function, if I can spell this properly, name, right? And no, this is not name, this is going to be greet function, and here I'm going to write greet and name of the person. So here I'm going to tell console.log, and I'm going to say hello Mr. plus name. That is how I use it, right? Whichever name I call it, I add it over here. Now let's see greet. Unique name ABCD, and I have hello Mr. ABCD, correct? So whatever I've called with, name has replaced that, and I can call dev doors, doesn't really matter unless and until everything is fine. This is a little wonky, it takes time. So hello Mr. dev doors. That is about parameter argument. Again, to recall, this is a parameter and this is an argument. Why do we use it? Whenever we are invoking a function, if we have to pass something, a dynamic variable, we use argument, and here you can see that there is a parameter, don't get confused, and that we use it. Now you tell me, are we going to use this console.log every time? No, we will be learning what is return type. I hope you are with me. If you have understood, just give this a like and channel a subscribe, and do mention what you think, and just mention what you want and how you feel about the video. That's it. So there is something called as return type, or return for JavaScript. There is no return type. So return of a function. Let's try to understand. So what I want to do is a calculator, and then what I want to do is write an add function. I'm playing around this mathematics. I'm really sorry, because I feel this is one of the best examples that I can give. Then I want a multiply function, and then I want a division, FUNC, that is func. What I'll do is, the answer I get from add, use it in multiply, and then use it in div. Right, now understand. Alright, function, I'm using a regular function. You can use any of the function. Oh, let me use all three types. That's the best way. So function add, I'll use again num1, num2, and I'll do console.log. I'll use console. By the way, don't use console. I'll tell you why. Num1 plus num2, and then I'm going to copy this, right? Should I be using num1 and num2? No, I shouldn't be using it. Why? Because here I want to use this answer, the answer that I get from add. I have to use in multiple, so it doesn't make sense. So I'm not going to write. We'll see what we can do about this. It's going to be interesting, don't worry. So here it is, I don't know what to do. Number1 times number2. Now we are stuck, right? I can't use console.log because here I don't know what is going to be the value. In fact, the add function, whatever I have, is going to get lost, because here whenever I do num1 plus num2, I'm not going to get that value, right? It's going to get lost because I'm just console.logging. I'm not storing it anywhere. That is where return is used, right? So I do return num1 plus num2. Now what will happen? Just ignore this. When I call the add function, what will happen? What do you think will happen? Well, it's not going to print anything, correct? This is because I've returned the function from this add function. I haven't captured it anywhere. So const, let's call it add res, that stands for add result, and then sol.log add res. Okay, now let me see. Refresh. It says not a number. This is because I haven't passed this number1. My bad, apologies. Number2, right? I'm going to refresh F5 and 167. Here you have it. Now the value captured, can I use this in multiply? Of course I can use this. So as I promised, I'll use function expression const multiply, or we can call this square because I'm going to square the number, right? I'm going to use that square times square, or multiply times multiply, whatever it is. I'm going to use a function. I'm going to use an anonymous function. And then here what I'm going to do is, by the way, equal to is important. I am going to return this. I'm not going to console.log because it doesn't make sense for me. What I have to do is I have to use the result that I get into the division. So return. So meanwhile I have to use this add res over here and return add res times add res. Great. Okay. Well, let's call this function. Let's call this square add res. Okay. Refresh. Oh, I did not capture it. I have returned it. My bad. Const mult res, and do we have it? What is the issue? Ah, I'll do console.log mult res. In fact, here I need not print this. Um, well, that is fine. I need to capture that value. I did not print it here. So here I have mult res 27889. That is great. And now I'll remove this print. I'll use const. I don't know what to use. Division. Return. Meanwhile, here you can pause the video and write by yourself. So I'll use mult res return mult res divided by mult res, and then what I'm going to do, const, or one more thing, I know that I'm going to console.log, so console.log division, I'm going to call this division, and mult res. Here you go. Here you will have the answer as 1. Okay. Now one more thing that I have to tell you, if you know that your code over here, specifically in arrow function, it's going to be a single line, what you can do is you can ignore this, you can ignore this, you can ignore the return. This is it. Simple. That is why I said you it's syntactical sugar. It makes life much easier for people, correct? And you have the answer as 1. Great. Now, am I missing something? Here I had to tell you that here we have the result as add res, right? Here I need not use add res. I hope you have got that. Here I can use any other name. I can call it mango. Doesn't really matter. Where does it matter? I'll tell you. Well, I don't know. It's not working for some reason, but anyways, mango times mango. It doesn't matter. You can use anything. You can use banana, chico, apple, whatever. But here, try to understand, whenever you're calling the square function, this variable that is got from add is going to go over here. Here you can call it whatever you want. When I go back, the answer will be same. So to summarize what we have learned what is a function, different ways to write a function, different syntaxes to write a function, and also we learned about parameter, arguments, and also the return of a function. Well, thank you so much for watching, and subscribe, like, share it with friends, and let me know what you feel once you know function. Write down in the comments.